The Atlanta Hawks are currently set to play the Milwaukee Bucks in hopes of advancing to the Emirates NBA Cup final and getting closer to that $500,000 bonus, pre-tax, of course. Obviously, these are two of the hottest teams right now in the East. As the Bucks have started to really play that successful basketball, I kind of believe that they would play going into the season, and then the Hawks have seemingly finally figured out a formula, probably since 2021, that actually works around their star point guard Trae Young. And while the Bucks are definitely doing their thing, Atlanta is who I want to focus on today because they look really impressive right now. These last few games for them. And I think the most impressive aspect is what we've all kind of witnessed so far, right? I think the way Quinn Snyder has used Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson in particular as secondary and tertiary ball handlers opposite of Trae Young. For years, people didn't believe that Trae Young could play off ball, right? Or that the Hawks would ever find a way to be successful without the ball in Trae Young's hands 24/7. I think most of us thought that surrounding him with taller, those 6'6", 6'8" range kind of 3-and-D players, would immediately make them contenders. And at one point, like I said, in 2021, it kind of did. It kind of did. But in the recent years, that plan crumbled. And granted, I think Trae Young still has some work to do as far as his off-ball movement. There are still moments throughout games where he gets really quiet and kind of becomes a play watcher, so to speak. But the fact that his scoring is down to 21 points per game, only the second time, including his rookie year, that he's averaged under 25 points a game, and yet his assists are at a career best 12 a game, it shows how he can still find ways to be impactful for this team and win games even if he isn't running the offense most of the game. And I think that's why the Hawks have been able to turn a corner this season, because a majority of their regular rotation is at least 6'8", right? I think Bogdan Bogdanovic is about 6'5", 6'6", but outside of him, everybody else is like 6'8". They can defend, they're athletic, they can make a play in transition. This is exactly the kind of makeup that Trae Young needed, right? And I think that's cool to think about, because if you remember, like a decade ago, I think it was, or maybe not even that long ago, maybe like 2018, the late great Jerry West actually said, like, he felt the perfect lineup in basketball as if everybody was 6'8". And it's funny because you see that nowadays in the NBA more and more, right? And I think, honestly, in some ways, that's low-key become a standard in NBA basketball now. Like, obviously, there are going to be some 6'4", 6'5" guys, 6'3" guys, even 6'1" guys. But if you have a lot of wings that are 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", you present the opportunity to have a lot more versatility than the average NBA team. And, you look at that and the Hawks are pretty much doing exactly that. And I actually caught their game, funny enough, versus the Bucks on December 4th. And it was really awesome to see how Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson are able to take off in the open court as if to say, hey, like, we got this. Like, Trae, it's all good, bro. Like, let us do our thing. I've seen Dyson Daniels not just be a great on-ball defender and probably the coldest pickpocket since prime Chris Paul that we've seen. But he thrives in drive and kick scenarios. He comes off DHOs really well, ready to make the right pass, but he also isn't afraid to get in the lane, shoot a floater. He seems to be always right there, just sitting in the corner, wide open for offensive rebounds. Like, Dyson Daniels is a guy that just, again, he plays the game the right way. Again, there's certain guys that come to mind when you say play the game the right way, because it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the perfect player, but they just play the game the right way. Like, you could put LeBron in that category. I know I say that, and then here I bring up one of arguably the GOATs of this game. But again, one of my favorite players of all time was Andre Iguodala, right? That was a guy, he played the game the right way. He wasn't the flashiest, jack of all trades, master of none, but he played the game the right way. Dyson Daniels brings a similar kind of skill set. He's going to defend, he's going to make the right pass, make the right decision. These are winning plays that he makes. Again, and moving to Jalen Johnson, to me, he's more of a athletic Scotty Barnes, I think, and I think I've even seen Damian Lillard's agent Nate Jones actually compare him to like a blend of Scottie Pippen and Amari Stoudemire, and I thought that was accurate and fire, if you ask me. But I think with that in mind, his size allows him, no matter who you compare him to, his size allows him to pass out the post. He can pass out of double teams. Even when he's doubled, I've seen him get offensive rebounds and the defense, collapses and he's smothered down there, but he can still see the corner shooter or the person on the wing who's wide open because of his efforts on the offensive glass. And I think that's been a really key point for the Hawks in a subtle way this season. And I mean, aside from the fact that dude can jump out the gym, there was a play in that Bucks game where he darn near jumped all over Giannis, and I believe it was Bobby Portis sitting in the paint. He jumped over them dudes as if they weren't even in the paint, man. Like, he didn't even see them, And I think in transition, when he gets a head full of steam, like, it's over with. He's a fantastic transition player. But I think, again, it shows his versatility as an impressive playmaker, who can initiate offense. Like I said, he reminds me a lot of what Scotty Barnes does in Toronto. And so you realize with this, Trae Young seemingly needed the one thing that we thought he didn't necessarily need, and that was a group of versatile playmakers and ball handlers, something that didn't work with Trae alone, and it didn't work with him and DeJounte Murray, right, taking turns getting theirs, like. And again, I guess some people might have said it like, Trae Young needs guys that just, need to do kind of what I was saying about the Boston Celtics last time, right? Like, you need guys that can do more than one thing. And I think in that regard, Trae Young needed that. But I just feel like we got so used to him running the show, we felt like that was the only way the Atlanta Hawks were going to be successful. Because again, due to some of his shortcomings off ball, you didn't want other teammates to take him away from the game. But the Hawks this year are showing that like all that is dead, like they got a really nice young group around him. Like I said, Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson in particular, these guys, they don't even have to score, yet they still take so much pressure off Trae Young, which has allowed him to pick and choose his attacks throughout a game. And to me, this right here is the sole reason why I believe the Hawks can have a special season this year as they look towards the future with this young group that they have with Trae, Jalen, Dyson, DeAndre Hunter, who has really become a spark plug, in a fairly newer six-man role this year. He flirted with it a little bit last year, and then he's got it full-time this year. They got rookie Zachary Ricochet, he, again, another 6'8" guy. I think some people kind of compared him to Nick Batum. So if that's a guy, again, another solid comparison, if that's a guy that can, get a block every now and then, get some steals, get some stops defensively, rebound, do a little extra, playmaking off DHOs and getting open, like making good cuts to the rim, he's going to be really good. He fits that wing formula that they've established, right? Going back to the 6'8" thing that I said. And, Onyeka Okongwu, man, this is a guy who's played his way into being the full-time starter for the team. It's at a point where the Hawks pretty much have Clint Capella on the trade block right now, and their bigs, if you will, are pretty much Onyeka Okongwu and Larry Nance Jr. And again, these guys are like 6'8", right, 6'9", like they're not even crazy big. So like again, it's just all this size, all this athleticism that is surrounded by Trae Young. It just opens up so much for them. Like I said, especially in transition. But because when you look at the stats, they're fifth in fast break points as a team. And again, it shows when you watch them play. They get a lot of transition opportunities. They're third in the NBA in assists. Again, just about 30 a game as a team. Again, that's coming from multiple guys, being able to make the right pass, make the right decision, play selfless basketball. They're fourth in total rebounds. So again, despite them giving up some height, not having like a 6'10" guy, 6'11", 7-footer, they're fourth in total rebounds because they have a lot of guys around the wings who are going to out-rebound the average shooting guard and even some of the small forwards in the league right now. They're second in steals, right? So, again, it's defense, it's rebounding, it's passing, and it's not just the Trae Young show. And it's showing this season, and again, as I'm giving love to the Atlanta Hawks, I'm not saying NBA Finals. I'm not saying even Eastern Conference Finals, as I believe, Cleveland, obviously Boston, and even, dare I say, a healthy Orlando team. I see more of those three teams in the mix. And obviously there's plenty of season left to go. You never know. So we'll see. But I just think the Atlanta Hawks can use this year as a great springboard for their future with the way their young core has finally seemed to gel like never before. Because if you follow Hip to the games, you know me. The playoffs are about buckets. And let me see that the Hawks can actually find a way to stay within a game for about 44 minutes, and then boom, let Trae Young take over in the fourth quarter, right? Likely with more energy and less pressure on him to seal the deal. I think we got a preview of that in the NBA Cup game versus the Knicks the other day, right? Like Trae was chilling, a lot like Floyd Mayweather in boxing, I think, all right, I'm chilling, then boom, here comes my attack, and for Trae Young, right? I'm getting to the lane, I'm getting to the line. You blink and I got 5 assists in like a 3-minute span, Trae Young being able to judge his attack based on the flow of the game is something that I feel like he hasn't necessarily been able to do, with the past rosters that he's had. This season, I feel like he's been able to do it like never before. It gives them a new chess piece, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, for the Atlanta Hawks. And I think they have a great opportunity to give the league a preview of their future on this NBA Cup stage. But see, with that in mind, on the flip side, that's why I'm kind of iffy about the NBA Cup as I kind of transition the topic just a little bit, because as fun as it is, as engaging as it is, I wish it served as more of a true playoff appetizer than merely a regular season enhancer, if that makes any sense. It would be nice to see the true top teams in the league play an intense game months before they actually play each other when it matters even more, right? Could you imagine in like 2010 seeing Lakers versus Celtics in the NBA Cup final and then watch them face off again in the NBA finals? Like how much more intense that would have been, right? And not that it couldn't have happened back then, because it's the other side of it too, right? But the thing about the NBA Cup is that a team with a worse record can catch a great team on a bad day and suddenly they're in Vegas, right? And suddenly, again, you get the national TV games and people start believing that you're a contender, but then you fumble towards the end of the season and then it's just like, well, what was it for? Because granted, with the same example I just gave, right? Imagine seeing Steve Nash, right? He's this 3-time NBA Cup winner, but still never made an NBA Finals. He would probably get flamed by casual fans even more than he already does, right? You already got casuals saying he's overrated this and all that stuff. So just imagine like if he was in the NBA Cup, like if they had it back then, I think we would have kind of the same kind of struggle with this that we're having as fans, So my thing is, it's indeed fun for the casual fan, but for me, in a general sense, I'm like, okay, like, cool, this is a good moment for the team, but like, can they do it in April? Can they do it in May? And, so as good as the Hawks are, as good as the Bucks have been, I like how these teams have been playing. It'd be great to see them win the NBA Cup. Like I said, it's a very fun thing, but I can't help but wonder when it's all over, is that kind of the sentiment where a lot of us are going to share, especially after what happened last year too, because for example, last season, the final was between the Indiana Pacers and the Los Angeles Lakers, right? And Indiana went on this great, NBA Cup run, despite losing to LA and the Lakers. And dare I say it, the Lakers, who played some of their best basketball of the season during that stretch, right? Because it was the first NBA Cup, everybody was hype. Obviously, LeBron is in it. Like, the hunger was there, for all the right reasons. But that said, as the season progressed, there was a point where you think about Indiana, they just barely avoided the play-in conversation, right? Like it was like them, the Heat, I think, the Sixers, and I think another team. They all had a very similar record. Like the Indiana Pacers were that close to just being in the play-in conversation. And at the time they made the NBA Cup, they were probably top 4 in the East. So like sure, in the grand scheme, they ended up making the Eastern Conference Finals, but again, you look at who they played against. The Bucks lost both of their stars due to injury. The Knicks ended up crumbling due to injuries. And then they got swept when they faced a healthy Boston team, right? And then the Lakers, they get to the playoffs and they just avoided a sweep in the first round of the Denver Nuggets. So it's like, yeah, in the heat of the moment, it was cool for the Pacers to especially, to get some national TV love and healthy exposure during the Cup run, but long term, ain't nobody tripping off the Pacers, in my opinion. Like, let's just be 100. And we're seeing it this year, too. Like, again, they haven't really had the same mojo that they had last year. It's not looking good, And when I think about this season, most likely, outside of the OKC Thunder, I don't know if these teams that are still alive in the NBA Cup, right? The Rockets, the Bucks, the Hawks, are they going to pose a crazy threat come playoff time? Milwaukee, they have the potential to, right? If Giannis is really rolling and Dame is on another level and Doc Rivers actually makes playoff adjustments, they could. Atlanta, like I said, I've given them their props. They're nice. I love what Quinn Snyder's doing over there. I think Quinn Snyder isn't getting enough love in terms of like coach of the year type stuff. The way he just took that team from Nate McMillan and it's been up ever since. Even when you look at last year, Houston is nice. I really like the way they play basketball, especially as a young team with a gritty group. But like, are these teams Boston? Are they Cleveland? Are they Dallas? And shoot, I almost want to throw in a healthy Orlando team because you can just see how good they can be once they get Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner back. They're still playing great defense with those guys out. I guess it's good for the NBA in the sense that the NBA Cup seems like it's going to be one of those things that it'll give a rising team a chance to show their potential. But like, at the same time, what does the NBA Cup really mean? Are we going to look back at some NBA Cup winners and say, yeah, it was cool, but they didn't do anything? The Lakers, look at them last year. They popped that champagne. They raised that NBA Cup banner in their arena, and they went on to win one playoff game that postseason. I get it, man. I get it. The Lakers, they had every right to celebrate that NBA Cup win. Life don't always got to be serious. If you know you might not be playing in June, go ahead and try to win the NBA Cup. Get you something. Again, it's a long season. You want those, you got to celebrate those wins, man. And give these players some extra money, right? Give those guys at the end of the bench some fatter wallets, right? You don't know how long they'll be in the league or if they'll have this opportunity again, and for the general fan, right? Bring some regular season intensity since natural competitive spirit is becoming a lost art. All right, cool. All that is all good about the NBA Cup. But for the players, if there is a bigger trophy to be won at the end of the year, the NBA Cup don't seem like it mean much in the grand scheme, but I think all that said, I am a fan of basketball. It's really awesome to see the playoff like atmospheres early on in the season. I don't have beef with the NBA Cup. I just struggle to, see its like grand scheme importance. But the NBA is always trying new stuff, and this is, again, it's something fun. It creates some really good basketball early on in the season, and we'll see how it goes. And I certainly hope I'm wrong when I'm talking about this, right? I hope that I'm wrong about the future of the NBA Cup, and that a team like the Atlanta Hawks, they do show that they can not just be a threat now and during this time of the year, but that they can pose a threat when it really matters come April and May.